Well, welcome back everyone to another one of our videos concerning an introduction to Spiritism. This is the second video where we will pick up from where we left off on the last summary that we had about the first chapter of the little book entitled Spiritism in its simplest expression. The first chapter was entitled The History of Spiritism, and as promised, today we'll talk a little bit about the second chapter of this little tiny book entitled The Summary of the Spirit's Teachings. And in this chapter we'll find items, numbered items, and each one of them briefly talks about very important topics that sort of provide, as I said before, an overview of the Spiritist doctrine as far as what the higher order spirits, which I had talked about in the last video, have come to teach us. These higher order spirits, as I had mentioned, are the spirits of these brothers of ours who have been incarnated on earth in the past and formulate a group of highly intellectual and loving spirits or entities or intelligences that want to bestow to us this new revelation about the greater life in the world. They might have been incarnated in the great figures, as we'll see later on. And by great figures, I mean those who help to advance humanity and to progress humanity. I'm not talking about the great figures of history that are put on a pedestal when it comes to those famous for empires and conflicts and things like that and conquests. That is not what I'm talking about. When I say great figures, I'm talking about the true great figures of humanity, those who champion life, who champion love, and who champion morality and champion God and a faith in something else beyond this life. So those are the great figures of humanity. And it is precisely these great figures that have come down to teach us, and by come down I mean this metaphorically, but have come to teach us these maxims, these things that will help guide us in life so that we may walk that straight and narrow path, so that we may find the right footing to continue on this journey, confident in the things that we are doing, that they are right, as long as we listen to our conscience, because the law of God is found in the conscience. And we know this because whenever we err or do something wrong, we feel bad about it. There is something inside of us that tells us that we have taken a wrong turn somewhere. And this little voice inside our heads is nothing more than the conscience guiding us, telling us that we need to ride our paths, ride our way, to go back on that highway that will take us to that never-ending evolution of the spirit that we are, of the immortal beings that we are. So without any further ado, let's get into the second chapter. One brief mention that I would like to make is that if you have any comments, questions about Spiritism or any concerns, please make sure to post them on our Facebook page in the comments section underneath the video, or you may also send it to us directly via private messages on the Facebook page that we have. And another thing is that these little books, the books from Spiritism, such as Spiritism in its simplest expression, and the other ones such as What is Spiritism that I had used in the last video, as well as the 5 seminal books of Allan Kardec, which we will eventually get to. They are all sold and found on ediseiofamerica.com. They have them in Portuguese, in Spanish, and in English, as well as other languages. So if you're interested in picking a copy up of this book, please make sure to check out that website and learn a little bit more about Spiritism, or perhaps follow us along and read these chapters after we do these videos or before we do these videos. So I welcome you to one more video, and let's get into it. So now we'll go over some of the items found in this chapter. It is a short chapter, but I encourage you to read it as well. And not only to read it as you normally do with other books and magazines, I mean to really read it. And by this, I am saying that you should slowly absorb the content found in this little book. And when I mean slowly, I certainly want to tell you that you should reflect upon the words that you are reading, because what you find here is a treasure trove of teachings, because they widen and broaden our horizons to see something much greater than what we see right in front of us. It helps us to see life in a new way, as I had explained in the previous video, because we now see things through the Spiritist lens, or the Spiritist goggles, if you will. And all of a sudden, things become clearer for us. Before, our vision had been fogged, or perhaps it was myopic, because we only saw the now. But as the window opened itself up and as the fog cleared up, when we put on the Spiritist glasses, now we see things much better and life begins to make much more sense for us. So do yourself a favor, pick up the book, read it, reflect upon it, and accompany us in this short study. Read a chapter before and after, comment on our video as I had said, just participate. Participate by yourself or with us, it doesn't matter, but read the book. I strongly recommend it. Not only this one, but every other one within the Spiritist works. So the first item of the chapter, entitled Summary of the Spirit's Teachings, says God is the Supreme Intelligence, the first cause of all things. Supreme Intelligence is a great definition, because if we look at the way and the harmony with which nature works, our lives, everything, the processes that entail evolution and everything else, we can definitely see that there is a great intelligence behind all of this. If we look at a great work of art, we can immediately say that this artist has great talent. If we look at an amazing, interesting, and intricate invention, we can say that this inventor has great talent, great intelligence. If we look at a building of beautiful proportions, a tall building that we thought that would be impossible to build because of its height, but then we realize that the architect of this building must possess great knowledge and great intelligence in his field of mathematics or architecture. The other one in invention, the other one in art, and so on and so forth, musicians, writers, poets, etc. These people have knowledges, and we know the cause through its effect. As I had mentioned before, every effect has a cause. So by seeing the end result of this work, of this product, we know that the cause must have been a great artist or an intelligent being. So if we transfer this notion, this idea, to creation, to where we live, to Earth, to the universe, clearly and obviously, putting on the Spiritist lens, the fog of a God that hitherto was held down and chained down by the conventions of mankind, liberates itself to demonstrate to us that it must be this being of supreme intelligence because of how everything works in our lives and how nature works. And not a supreme being of supreme intelligence in terms of an architect, a musician, or an artist that we have on earth, but much, much greater than that, and encompassing all of those subjects and many other ones that we cannot even fathom as a humanity yet. So this is the greatness of God, and Spiritism gives us this new vision, removing the anthropomorphic view of God as this old man sitting on a throne far away, to this entity, this amorphous entity that covers creation. As the Rabbi Adam Steinsaltz says, God begins when infinity ends. So we see that the term God is simply the word that we use in humanity to define this entity. In reality, we don't know how to define it because our language is poor, but it is a supreme intelligence. And this is the beauty of this teaching. And we see this as the first question in item 1 of the Spirits book as well, which we'll get to later. And then we see spirits in item 4. Spirits are individual beings. They possess an ethereal, imponderable envelope called the perispirit, a sort of fluidic body in human form. Spirits inhabit space, which they can travel through faster than light. They make up the invisible world. Now there is an ethereal body, and we'll briefly cover this now. There is something called the perispirit. There is a human body, the perispirit, and the spirit. The spirit is the source, the fountain, the light, the divine spark, what we all are. The perispirit is what allows us to mold a form. The spirit is found within this perispirit, much like the fruit has a perisperm. It is this cover, and it is this fluidic cover that allows us to agglomerate the molecules that will form the human body. So in essence, that's what it means. We'll get deeper into it in later studies, but I don't want to take too much time of the video right now to explain it. And we can read more about it as well in chapter 1 of this very book. It does talk a little bit about it too. And spirits inhabit space, obviously. If we inhabit the earth and we're spirits that are incarnated, spirits that are discarnated must inhabit elsewhere. Not elsewhere geographically, because let's think about it. There is no location for a free spirit. There is only space in creation. Everywhere is its location, because with the speed of thought, it can make itself present at a specific location. I know this seems contradictory, but it's tough to explain it in words to make very much, to make good sense out of it. But basically, the spirit can manifest itself anywhere through the power of thought. Obviously, it depends on the level of progress of the spirit, which of course we'll get to later as well. And they make up the invisible world. Invisible world because we don't see it. But it's not the invisible world. To us, it's an invisible world, but it is a very visible world. And in reality, if we just think about it and reflect on it, we do see it. Because there are things that sometimes are unexplainable to us because science can't really understand it yet. But it happens. Things happen. And something must cause them to happen. So is it really invisible, or is it not yet understandable? I think that's a more appropriate term. But yes, these spirits inhabit the invisible world, so to speak. The origin and the way spirits are created are unknown to us. Obviously, we do not know these things, but as time progresses, things are shed, the truth comes slowly and they are unveiled to us as science discovers new things, as new inventions come to teach us new things. We become more knowledgeable of life and of the universe around us. So these things with time make themselves known to us. We have to be patient and we have to understand our limitations. So certain things will remain a mystery to us for a long time. Or maybe they'll be shown to us in the near future or in the long-term future. We don't know. We know only that they are created simple and ignorant. And this is item 5. I.e., or in other words, without knowledge or the understanding of good and evil. Nevertheless, they are created with an equal aptitude for all things, for God in His justice could not exempt some from the work imposed on others to reach perfection. So we are all created equal. We all have the same abilities, possibilities, and capabilities. We can all do the same thing that will lead us to that relative perfection. But some of us decide to take different routes because we have the free will. And the free will becomes greater as we evolve because we're able to discern things better. And as this ability to discern becomes greater, we have more of a leeway to act within a certain limitation. So in the beginning, you might say that we only have instinct, and instinct is the guidance of God, of the entity known as the Supreme Intelligence for Spiritism, or our conscience, which is this divine law written within us that is directly connected to this entity, to the Supreme Intelligence, that guides us automatically. We see this in animals, for example. They don't have the ability to discern certain things. Some have it, a very small portion of it. It's incipient. However, we have the ability to discern things now, so we have the free will to choose which path to take. So necessarily, we are not bad or good. We are just a blank slate when we are created. However, we aren't born with a blank slate. There is no tabula rasa. This epistemological idea that we are born with a blank slate makes no sense when we talk about Spiritism. However, when we are created as a divine spark, as an intelligent principle, we are indeed a blank slate that will acquire knowledge as we progress through the many successive existences. And of course, at first, they live in a sort of infancy without their own will and without complete awareness of their existence. And in item 7, we see that God did not create evil. We had just talked about this here. God established laws, and these laws are always good because God is supremely good, of course. If God created evil, then God wouldn't be God. How can the Supreme Intelligence create anything bad? Why would it want us to suffer? Obviously, we know now that through the principle and the idea of free will that any suffering is a consequence of our own actions. So it couldn't be God that would have made things bad for us. It just doesn't make any sense. A perfect being would not create any imperfections. We, because we are still incomplete, not imperfect, we are perfect because we were created by God, by this divine and supreme intelligence. However, we are incomplete, so this incompleteness causes us to still err, and thus we have consequences of these errors. One could say that good is everything that conforms to God's law, and evil is everything contrary to the same law. Obviously, if we go against these laws, we are acting in the wrong way. So obviously our conscience tells us, and we feel that we are doing something wrong, and so this is a way to teach us that we have to correct ourselves. Maybe not in this life, maybe in a future life, because there are consequences to every action that we partake in and that we endeavor in, and the things that we do. So we have to always be careful and watch at the things that we are doing, so we do not have to go through these corrections later on. And proceeding forward, we see in item 9, incarnation is not imposed on the spirit as punishment. It is needed for its development and completion of the works of God. So clearly, we don't incarnate on the earth because we're being punished. We incarnate on the earth because we need to put to use the faculties that we've been given. Because if we just roam freely as spirits in the universe, not suffering any of the vicissitudes of life, any of the difficulties, we would never develop any of the faculties that we need in order to become closer to the one who created us, to the divine essence, to the supreme intelligence that created us, to become a co-creator in this amazing universe. So we come into Earth where we are forced to put to use all of our faculties, our intelligence, our morals, our ability to discern things, our talents, so to speak. So in order to live here, we have to learn things, we have to work, we have to find ways to gather, not to gather food, but back then, in a long time ago in antiquity, perhaps, yes, not perhaps, definitely. But today we have all of these challenges, and these challenges force us to become better in our relationships with others, to live within society, because it's very easy for us to retire to some monastery and live by ourselves and live in peace. That's very easy. If you're living by yourself with no one to bother you, you can live in peace. But the challenge is to live among society, to become a man of the world, because it is in that essence that we find the challenge to our patience, to our understanding, to our tolerance, these things that we need to develop in the relationships we have with others. Incarnate spirits comprise humanity, which is not limited to the earth only, but inhabits all the worlds scattered throughout space. Again, Spiritism widening our horizons, telling us that humanity isn't just locked to the earth, that the earth is in the center of the universe. We know this. We no longer have a geocentric view of the solar system. We've been given a heliocentric view a long time ago of the solar system. Copernicus made us see this new light. Matter of fact, Aristarchus' Samus already did that in antiquity in Greece. So we see that the earth is in the center of everything. God doesn't just watch over the earth. He watches over his entire creation. So the Supreme Intelligence governs everything and sees everything and helps to make everything function well based upon the laws that are eternal, the divine laws, the natural laws, the laws of nature. So in essence, everyone populates everywhere. Just because we don't see it, because maybe our equipment doesn't detect it, doesn't mean that it's not there. It might be beyond our senses, beyond the ability for our technology to understand, see, or pick it up. But we know through different things, different mediums, and by mediums I mean different videos and things, that there are certain things out there that are captured by people that seem out of this world. So all of us, I believe, have some inner understanding or inner belief about something out there, because it's impossible for the universe, or let's just say the galaxy, to keep things small for the purposes of this video. A galaxy that the latest estimate might have between 800 billion to 3 trillion planets. Can we truly say with full confidence that only the Earth is inhabited? Of course not. And now that we know that there are spirits, beings outside of the corporeal envelope, then now we can say that there might be planets outside of our field of vision that are imperceptible to our senses. So this gives us a whole new thing to reflect on and think about. The progress of the spirit is the result of its own labor, obviously. Since it cannot acquire in only one corporeal existence all the moral and intellectual qualities that it needs to reach its objective, it does so by means of a sequence of existences, during which it takes a few steps forward on the path of progress. So the successive existences and incarnations help us to continue on our progress so that we may attain that objective, that final goal, where perhaps we may graduate from the school of earth to a better campus, another planet that might be more advanced, another place to live, something else that we might do as we evolve and become the pinnacle of the spirit that has reached the relative perfection of this earth. We might be able to go somewhere else or engage in new studies and continue onwards. Because It is incessant. It is an evolution. This is the consolation because it never ends. We always have things to learn. It's beautiful. It's a blessing to know these things. The spirit life is a spirit's normal life. It is eternal. Eternal would mean that it didn't have a beginning. I would say it is immortal. It is mortal because we have a beginning, but we have no end. And that's why it's hard to understand God, because we see things within this convention of a beginning and an end in this life. We can understand things without an end because we have a word for it. We have infinity. Eternal might help us to understand something without a beginning as well, but we cannot comprehend how something did not start anywhere. But if we remove ourselves from the convention of time of the earth and allow ourselves and liberate our minds to the universe, we see that perhaps there is a chance that something did not have a beginning as we understand it. It is timeless. It's tough. It's a tough concept for us to swallow, but it's what it is. Corporeal life is temporary and fleeting. It is only an instant in eternity. So the real life is the one that we have outside of here. That's why we can't just focus on this life. We lose sight of the truth and of the things that we need to collect and gather to reap the rewards of our tasks here, things that we can take with us. Because if we leave a city to go to another city, we only take the things we need. We don't take extra baggage. Some people do, but that's a whole other story. But we don't take extra things. We take only what we need. And it's the same concept here. We have to take the things that we need. And these are the virtues, the morals, the faculties that we develop, the talents that we develop, the things that we really can take with us that are material. Because if you focus just on the life, on this life, we're going to worry about this life only and forget that there's a greater life. So the true reality of our beings, of the essence that we are, is the greater life, not this life. This is a stopping point, a station on the way to something greater, a station that allows us to continue to practice and become better. The guilty spirit is punished by mental suffering in the spirit world and by physical suffering during corporeal life. Its afflictions are the result of its wrongs. That is, of its transgressions of God's law. They are themselves, or they are therefore at one and the same time an expiation of its past and a trial for its future. The guilty spirit is basically we who have made mistakes. We come back by the mercy of divinity to have a new opportunity, a new chance to right our wrongs. And so we come back here and we might suffer the consequences of past mistakes, but we put forth our best effort and we try to overcome it and correct that mistake so that we can liberate ourselves from this guilt. And again, its afflictions are the result of its wrongs. So we are the architects of our own buildings of life, of the immortal life. We create everything for us, or create our own problems. Life is simple. We are the ones who complicate it. It's true. Since God is supremely just and good, he does not condemn his people in eternal punishment because of their transitory wrongs. He continually offers them the means to progress and to repair the bad things they have done. And we see this through reincarnation. Obviously, there's no eternal punishment. It would make no sense for a supremely just and good God to eternally punish anyone, especially for a mistake that can be corrected. If here on earth we make a mistake and we correct ourselves, we are liberated from any type of punishment. We may even allude to prisoners. Prisoners who are given a certain time to quote-unquote redeem themselves for the crime they committed. They are then released once that period of time runs out or is finished. So if the laws of the earth, which are completely not advanced yet, and there's lots of room for improvement, if the criminal justice system of the world provides this, why would this justice system of the universe, the cosmic justice, not do the same thing? It makes no sense. There is no eternal punishment. If we are only eternally punished, quote unquote, if we eternally do things that are wrong. But the moment that we repent and we regret what we did, we already start the road to progress and to correcting the wrongs that we may have done. And then we begin to liberate ourselves from this self-imposed punishment. When they incarnate, spirits bring with them what they acquired during their previous existences. This is why people instinctively display special aptitudes or good or bad inclinations that appear to be inborn. This is great. This is the explanation for the inequalities of the world. All of us are in different levels because we have all done different things throughout our successive existences. So we see children that are prodigies, children that have trouble with learning things, children with specific talents, humans with innate abilities to learn languages, to learn instruments, to draw. These things are all explained with Spiritism. They're all explained with reincarnation. It's as simple as that. Natural bad inclinations are the remnants of a spirit's imperfections. That is, it has not yet rid itself of completely. They are also indications of the wrongs it has committed, the true meaning of original sin. During each existence, it must wash away a few of its impurities. So there you go. I don't have to expand upon this. In each new existence, people are what they make of themselves. It is for them a new departure point. They know their current faults, and they are aware that these are the consequences of previous ones. They can deduce what wrongs they committed in the past, and this is sufficient for working to correct them. If they no longer have the imperfections they used to have, they no longer need to be concerned about them. They have their current ones to be concerned about. So you want to know what you may have done or been in the past life? Take a look and reflect on your own thoughts. What are your inclinations? What do you like to do? Where do you like to hang out? What are the things that you enjoy? Who are the people with whom you like to interact? What type of work do you like? What interests you? These things give us all a clue as to why, as to the things that we may have been in the past, the personalities we may have been in the past, and our past lives and what we may have done in the past as well. So we have to really sit back and reflect on this, and to understand perhaps that there might be a way for us to become better and to improve by truly thinking about what are we doing in this life. And maybe I might be able to detach myself or detach ourselves from these things that still hold us down, that still detain us in the earthly existence. And instead we have to unchain ourselves so we can take flight and overcome these obstacles that we imposed on ourselves from past existences. The diversity of inborn moral and intellectual aptitudes is proof that the soul has lived before. If it had been created simultaneously with its current body, it would not be in accordance with God's goodness for some to be born more advanced than others. Again, there is no epistemological tabula rasa, no blank slate. We're not born with nothing. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't have technology. We wouldn't have any of the inventions that we have today. It's as simple as that. Humanity wouldn't be where it is today because everything would begin from zero. Obviously, some may begin start a work in a past existence, leave this life, be able to continue to study in the spirit life when it's liberated in the invisible world, as we had mentioned before, and then come back in another life to continue on that work. We see this because there are scientists who seem to be able to pick up on things that were left off before in previous generations, and they are able to complete and expand upon certain works that it just boggles the mind. This is what Spiritism brings to us, this revelation, this comprehension, understanding of things and how they work, and how we are not just things that are born from a mass of cells, from the zygote to a mass of cells to a fetus. No, we are much more than that. We are connected before the zygote is formed. We have the affinities throughout successive existences with family members and so on and so forth. And we'll delve into this later on. And of course, it would not be in accordance with God's goodness to give some people the ability to do things, to impair some people physically, to have some people be mentally challenged. Clearly, there's a cost to all of this. If God is supremely just and good, why would he do this to anyone? Why would it, in reality, do this to anyone? Because God is neither he nor she. It's a supreme intelligence. So if it's a supreme intelligence, it can't err. The problem is that we impose our own conventions and perspectives on what we think this supreme intelligence might do and how he or she, or not he or she, excuse me, how it might act. That's the problem. We have to remove ourselves from these analyses and allow the analyses to be done with no bias, with an impartial analysis, so we can further understand these things. Why are there both non-civilized and civilized humans, good and bad persons, fools and wise persons. Everything is explained by realizing that some have lived more existences and have consequently acquired more attributes than others. So to finalize today's short video, I hope this was a bit better and more refined than the first one. Spiritism is not a new light, but a brighter one, for it has appeared at all points of the globe through the voices of those who once lived. And we know this because Spiritism is the advent of a new realization for humanity. And when Kardec says, when the little book says and Kardec says all over the world, is because when Spiritism manifested itself, the meetings weren't only happening in Paris, as I had talked about in the previous video, in the previous chapter, History of Spiritism. They were manifesting themselves all over the world, in every country. So Kardec had this universal control over these passages that were being mechanically written by the different mediums all over the world, because he would receive these communications via mail or telegraph, if you will, in his era, and the message would correspond perfectly with a message from another medium in France. Let's say a medium in the United States, or a medium in Spain or Portugal, would all write a message that was exactly the same as the other ones from these other nations. They corresponded to one another, and these originated from mediums or people who were able to manifest these messages and these communications, who did not know one another and who had different levels of understanding and different intelligence and different knowledge. And yet, why are the messages having the same content? Because the principle behind it all must have been the same, and there must be a reason behind it. And the reason is to allow us to see the greater things in life and to understand that there's something much, much greater waiting for us, and something amazing behind everything that we see and do in this world. The intangible, not the invisible, the imperceptible, because we haven't yet developed the senses and the ability to perceive these things. But when we pray, or perhaps when we meditate, when we close our eyes and reflect upon things, we see that there is indeed something that we feel within, burning inside, a desire to learn, to become better. We have this drive, this inner drive, and yet we do not know what it is. It is this constant seeking for something that will nourish this ever growing thirst for knowledge and for something that we can't determine. But what it is exactly this: the existential void that we all seem to have, that Spiritism fills for us. It isn't the salt water of the things of the earthly life, but indeed the fresh water of the things of the greater life. And it is this content that will quench the thirst that we have and allow us to carry on forward in this march of evolution. So thank you again for your patience and for your time and for watching this video. And I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you have any comments, feel free to send it to us via the Facebook page. Let us know how we can improve it. Any suggestions are welcome. And I hope to see you all next time. And as always, may God bless each and every one of you. And I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day wherever you may be, in whatever country you may be, in whatever situation you may be. It does not matter. But always remember that everything is temporary and everything with time passes, because time is of the earth and everything is limited here. So everything that happens to us has a beginning date and an end date. And this is the consolation that we have, that nothing lasts forever here on this earth. Everything ends at a certain point, and then we are free to continue on our wonderful journey of evolution, of growth, and of developing the spirit that we are, to become closer with that supreme intelligence that created us long, long ago.